First time I met Dewayne was actually on a Sunday when we had various mission partners coming to Grace Covenant, and I believe you gave like a really awesome children's sermon for that Sunday. So that was my first introduction to you, Dewayne, during that time. And many of you all probably know Dewayne from having learned from him during the Hood Huggers tours. Dewayne is the founder of Hood Huggers International, a community leader, a visionary, and a culture keeper. We're just very excited to have him here today. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Dewayne.
So I want to say I appreciate the opportunity to share with you today. And what I want to try to do is give you some background history on how we was able to and why we created this book, this future book called the Community Accountability Plan. And through our experiences and our challenges and opportunities, we were still able to do some very powerful work here in Asheville. And we would like to share those experiences and those techniques and strategies with other communities around the country, particularly African-American communities who have been experiencing similar barriers. So this right here is the draft cover of the book. Like I say, it's called the Community Accountability Plan. And this particular diagram is the center platform, is the platform for doing work that focuses on the arts, the environment, and social enterprise, but also communities, schools, and business. So let's go to the next slide, and I would like for you to play the video. Oh, before you play the video, this right here is the future goal and mission of this whole CAP book. And this song right here, or this particular video, is the theme song for the book. All right, you can go and play it.
Hello, my name is Dewayne Barton, and right now we're in the Burton Street Peace Garden in the classroom/library. And never in a million years, based on my history and experiences in public education, that I would ever imagine that I would put a library/classroom in my backyard. Because early in my elementary years, preoccupied with cartoons, dress code, girls, and cracking my next joke, class clown, not knowing my future was in my own hands. But life in our world is poetry in motion. And with the current side effects of climate change, AI, and the C-19, the world is a grand opportunity to create, inspire, and connect. But we're gonna have to learn to dream together and reimagine what we want to see, not what we fear. And the A in the alphabet to this whole hustle is to love yourself. Value yourself. Value me. And together, Earth. The world is ours when we work together. Now, one of our dreams or goals could be to heal and build at the same time. Create spaces and places designed for people to come and be restored, recharged, and maintenance. And then back out to build again. In spite of all the challenges, obstacles, and even failures of the past. Another dream, goal, or outcome could be
a international solution. 6 months of work and 6 months of play. No mass consumption, no overtime pay. Environmentally conscious and a living wage. 6 months of work and 6 months of play. 6 months of work and 6 months of play. No mass consumption, no overtime pay. Environmentally conscious and a living wage. 6 months of work and 6 months of play. No mass consumption, no overtime pay. Environmentally conscious and a living wage. 6 months of work and 6 months of play. A international tragedy, poverty, implosion from within, massive layoffs united under a non-living wage, labor working 3 jobs, temporary part-time, no health insurance, at-risk job security, pension, union, gone. Check it, we work like machines, rob by Sam, net pay we receive. Work, tax. A international tragedy, economic captivity in the land of the free. Cost of living eruptions, unemployment collapse, rooftops. 6 months of work and 6 months of play. No mass consumption, no overtime pay. Environmentally conscious and a living wage. 6 months of work and 6 months of play. No mass consumption, no overtime pay. Environmentally conscious and a living wage. 6 months of work and 6 months of play. Cost of living eruptions, unemployment collapse, rooftops. The Wall Street mystery versus the NASDAQ riddle. Up or down, our financial justice the same. More and more poor bleed hopelessness. More golf courses, more luxury homes, hotels, condominiums, multi-million-dollar sports complex, billion-dollar ships, missiles, and planes, billion-dollar experiments in space, stretching to restore and expand the beachfront. More and more politicians make smiles and handshakes. No answers. But Cass and Bass, their new $4,900 raise. A international tragedy. No money. No money. No respect. Human capital bankrupt. Extraordinary. Not in America. 6 months of work and 6 months of play. No mass consumption, no overtime pay. Environmentally conscious and a living wage. 6. The more we play the game, the more our conditions stay the same. No mass consumption, no overtime pay. Environmentally conscious and a living wage. 6 months of work and 6 months of play.
That was awesome. Oh my God.
All right, cool.
All right, back to it. Hold on.
All right. So this is a slide just talking a little bit about some of the accomplishments that we've been involved in since we moved back here in 2001. Next slide. And we wouldn't have been able to do a lot of the work we've been doing since 2001 if we didn't have a base. So when I first moved back to Asheville, the Burton Street community is where I moved back to, and it's where my family's been for over 100 years. But when I moved back here, it was drug infested. It wasn't a safe place to be. So we wanted to do something about it. But before I moved to Asheville, I have always been working with different community leaders. Like my father was very active in the community in Southeast DC. And he used to pull me out with him every Saturday morning. And I didn't like that because I was going out to do community service while leaving all my friends back in the neighborhood. But that experience really always attracted me to people who was doing community work. Not until I came back to Asheville that I really had to take a leadership role. All the other times before, I was under instruction. I was the one they sent to do the errands and do all the errands and just to sit around and listen and not speak. And this right here is an entranceway to the Peace Garden. Now, the land that the Peace Garden was in was bought by my uncle. And if he didn't hold on to the land, the Peace Garden would not be present at this time. Now, when we started working in the neighborhood to try to clean up, because not only was the neighborhood trashed out, it was drugged out, it was also trashed out. So we would go around and collect trash, and then we would bring the trash back to the Peace Garden and start creating, art. And my wife, around that time, around 2003, when we started, she wanted to grow a garden. She grew up on a farm, and I wanted to make art out of trash. And we did it, and it was pretty interesting to do that. Now, the reason we wanted to create this green space because we wanted to get people to come outside of their house and share and walk and talk with people. And we also wanted to keep maintenance up of the community. Next slide. And this just talks about a little bit about what I said. I mean, to even create the Peace Garden, we had to pick up a lot of 40-ounce bottles, pull up a lot of poison ivy, a lot of dead trees. It was during a period of time where this was one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the city. It was not a comfortable place to be, but we was using what we have to create what we thought would be beneficial, not only to ourselves, but the community. Okay, next slide, please. And this right here is a diagram of what currently is in the Peace Garden. It's pretty comprehensive. And it just grew. We were being real consistent, and I can't say it was just me and my wife. It was like the city and the world helped build this space through work days, youth from the neighborhood that we would pay to help clear the land and pick up the garbage around the neighborhood and to help build some of the structures. And the section, the Peace Garden is broken up in 3 sections: urban nightmares, silent screams, make our water safe, surrounded by water, none can we drink, and the emotional dysfunction of consumption. All right, next slide. So this is one of the structures. This is a classroom / library, and this is what it looked like after a group, Asheville Design Center, community volunteers. They approached us and said, hey, would you we starting this. This is our first class we ever doing. Is the structure in a Peace Garden you would like to have built? We said yes. And so what they did, they had about 6 or 7 architect students from all over the country come here one summer and build this structure here. And it was a design build class. And what they did was repurpose a lot of the materials that we had laying around. And one thing I need to put in this slide, I need to show y'all the progression, because it did not look like this at first. It was a straight up Fred Sanford type backyard with a little bit of everything in it. But so I think in one summer they built the structure. So they used a lot of materials we had laying around the backyard, and then they went out to get other pieces of materials, and they just asked us what would we want it to look like, and do you want a window here, a door here, you want all these different things. It was a real inspiring project after all the work we've been doing over the years. Another thing about this project is that it was really started. I used to work at the Swannanoa Youth Development Center. And it was like a youth prison is what it was. And when I worked there, I just really wanted to see greater things for the young people. And I said, well, what could I do in here? So one thing they was really crazy about at that time was being able to get a snack out of the snack machine. I mean, man, that was a big deal. That was like getting $100, being able to get a 50-cent snack. So I said, wow, I see incentive. So I used to bring them books and say, wow, if you read this book and you write, 2 to 3 pages, no more than 5 pages about this particular book right here, I'll go buy you a 50-cent snack. And man, it worked very well. And we still have those writings that we want to share with the young people we work with today, about some young people that was in a real dark space, but was trying to read and create some encouraging words for young people who are not currently and weren't at that time in that condition. So this particular structure came from a little portable library that we built. And then from that portable library, we had this structure built with the Asheville Design Center. All right, next slide. This is another structure. This is supposed to be the meditation space. You can see right to your right, that roadmap. That's a part of the book, the CAP Community Accountability Plan. And that's the framework that we created to try to give clarity, connection, maintenance, and celebration to people that's trying to rebuild their community. We have seen, and I work here in Asheville, a lot of things come and go. We have seen some beautiful programs and some beautiful initiatives, and what we haven't seen is the consistency to keep that work going for the long term. And I want to pause for a minute and say, that video that you watched was done by Mr. Hill. I think he attends the church over there. And I was real happy with the video and the work that he did. And I want Mr. Hill, if y'all see Mr. Hill, say, Mr. Hill, that was a great video, and thank him, because we are very happy with that piece. And then next slide. Yeah. Now, this right here is our greenhouse, and what we've been doing over the past several years is just using repurposed materials that people would like throwing away. Like, this is the greenhouse, and the bars you see right here came off a Ronald McDonald slide that Elida Holmes was throwing away. So we went over there in our pickup truck and disassembled them. The Ronald McDonald Playhouse. We brought it back to the Peace Garden, and then my brother-in-law came up. He designed and built the greenhouse. And I think for the past 7 years, my wife has been holding plant and flower sales. It's usually a pretty popular event. And even the past one we did, even during the C19 time, we still had a very strong turnout, and it was on an honor system. People could just come in and pick their plants and pay either through a cash app or put the money in the donation box. This right here is a very powerful thing for me. My wife, like I say, she grew up on a farm. She don't, she's kind of used to this about growing food and taking care of plants. But for me, it has been very therapeutic to stick my hand in the dirt and try to take care of green things. Then next slide. This is a sculpture in the garden. It was called Coming to America. And it's in the Urban Nightmare Silent Scream section. And what we currently doing, we writing a curriculum on the different sculptures. So we want to educate young people and adults. So it's a sculpture, it's a book, it's a movie, and now we're creating an actual curriculum that could educate and teach people about the history, what's going on right now, and what we can do in the future. Next slide. So in the garden has, like I say, a specific focus: the arts, the environment, and social enterprise. And we recently, so throughout the space, we want to have structures and technologies that promote the environment, from solar panels to green roofs to water catchment to all those things that we feel that's very important and that we as a community together need to take care of it, take care of the planet and take care of each other. So we recently finally had solar panels installed in the Peace Garden. We had some young people from the neighborhood that's currently working with us as a part of that project. We plan to now build a solar charging station across the street at the Burton Street Community Center. We also plan to put a portable book library over there too. And with the solar charging station, we want to create a kiosk that talks about the importance of being conscious about the environment and taking care of the place and how solar and the benefits of solar. And we also know that the county has recently, they're going to do a big solar project throughout the county and the city. And the Burton Street Community Center is one of those places that they plan on putting solar on it next year. So our plan and goal now is like, how do we take some of these young people and adults to teach them some basic skills around solar, and that they help install the solar on the roof. We know how important it is to have people who live in a community to help build it, and as they build them, we want them to heal, have value, and build connection. Next slide. Now, like I said, I was talking about, the sculptures and how we want to educate young people. Not only, like I say, the space was designed to talk about social justice, but also environment. Or, how do you mix those as one, and how you educate and leave an inheritance for the next generation to work with. So young people is crucial. And right now we have this HHI under instruction, where we have about 10 young men that we were working with right now. And they really challenging my patience right now to teach them some basic skills around carpentry, plumbing, electricity, solar panel, welding, you name it. We're just trying to get their hands strong so when they go out in this world, their opportunities won't be limited for not having a skill set. Next slide. Like I say, the arts is a very important part of the garden. And we think as art as an engagement tool, but also a healing tool. I know art has been very therapeutic for me, and I don't think I would be able to do a lot of things I've been doing here in Asheville throughout my life without having that outlet. Because I know before I found art, I was doing some very destructive things, self-destructive, and some very destructive things, and it really saved me. Now, the mural to your left is done by a local muralist. I think it's Ian, and the guy in the center, that's Mike. He usually plays on it too, his music. He also lives in the neighborhood. And the sculpture to the right, that's a sculpture we built for the grand opening of the Asheville Art Museum. And most of that is all found materials from structures, specifically African-American structures or places that was torn down or renovated in the past 5 years. Of course, we know that the Lee Walker Heights public housing unit, one of the first public housing units built for African Americans in the 1950s, was torn down. And we know that was during that time of urban renewal from 1950 to 1970. We also know that over 400 acres of Black homes and businesses was lost during this period of time. And when those businesses was torn down and these people was displaced, they put them in public housing units, one way in and one way out, public housing units around the city. The only exception was Pisgah View. But we know Pisgah View was built for only whites. And like you say, Lee Walker Heights was just for African Americans. So not only did we take the sign and create that sculpture there, to keep that community alive and keep trying to tell that story, we also took the screen doors from Lee Walker Heights and turned them into a hands-on work lab. And that's the spot where we plan on teaching the young men and women the basic skill sets of carpentry, plumbing, and electricity. Now there's little silver parts that are supposed to, this is called George Washington Carver, the third eye. And the little silver eyeballs, those are from the Livingston Street School. They renovated the auditorium. We took those out and we repurposed those for the art. We did that for a number of structures in and around the city. Particularly if they were of significance for the African American community. Next slide. Now, social enterprise, and this is the most crucial part to the whole thing, because like I said, I done seen a lot of things come and go around the city. But so in doing that, we say, okay, how do we sustain this hustle right here? How do we sustain it? I mean, and the way we plan on trying to sustain it is through a social enterprise. And that's why we started Hood Tours, the tour business, because we wanted to take money from the tours and invest it back into the community through the youth, to maintenance in cemeteries, to highlighting artists and businesses throughout the city. Whichever way we could create a platform that would support this community, that we know that, okay, we talked about urban renewal, I've talked about urban renewal, we talked about public housing, but we know after urban renewal, after that devastation, we had another 30 years of war on drugs that continue to devastate these historically African-American communities throughout the country. And where I feel we are now And with this C-19 is really throwing things back. Like we in a rebuilding phase. That's why we call it Hood Huggers International. Our goal is to try to rebuild the infrastructure in these communities and then look for organizations and individuals who provide the most effective and efficient programming to support that. You know what I mean? Because we feel if you don't have the infrastructure, any program, it won't be able to sustain itself. And through this Mountain Business Equity Initiative, it was created in response to the city. The city did a disparity study, and it came back to say that they were not contracting with African American businesses. And through that, they created the Department of Equity, and this was a spinoff of that to try to build the infrastructure or the ecosystem that would support African American business, not only in the city, but in a 10-county region of Western Carolina. So right now, we started off with about, I think, 5 or 6 businesses. Now we down to 3. And we're supposed to be launching the end of this month, the early part of September. And our goal is trying to connect the dots with organizations or programs that's trying to support these businesses, but also the businesses themselves. How can we create a platform that's going to, support them during this very crucial and devastating time? Now, it was ugly before C-19, and it's just gotten worse. And we see that during this period that the African American community, Latino community is suffering is pretty intense. So what can we do to try to address that? Next slide. This is like I say, this is the healing. We're trying to make a hustle real can put you in the hospital. You know what I mean? In fact, was it just a week ago today, my blood pressure was off the chain, and I called the VA. They were like, yo, we want you to come to the doctor. And I was like, man, you know what? I'm going to sit here and chill, try to relax and do that. So, and I'm doing my dream job, right? Right now, I'm doing my dream work. This is something I created. I dreamed this up in my head, and it's happening. So sometimes I don't know how to stop. Sometimes I don't know how to just chill. And, but that's a very important thing, and that's a practice. And that's where that 6 months of work and 6 months of play come in. I really feel that if we don't have time to chill, we never have time to heal. All right, next slide. And that's more about the space. And we know, if we weren't getting anything from anybody, no resources, what do we have that we could use that could heal and inspire and calm people down? And that's why taking care of this green space and planting as many flowers and just doing all we can that can create a space, encouraging people to put their hand in the dirt. Just what can we do with what we have to try to transform people in a real way? And this year, because of, a lot of people not eating, we decided to take on another green space and try to connect all the gardens as one. So there was another garden over there by St. Paul Church, and Mr. Anderson was strong enough to start that. And now we are also working over there and building out the infrastructure, getting young people to help us out to build that space out to make it, strong and a benefit to the community. Yes, next slide. Now, when I came back here, I didn't know about the history of Burton Street. The drugs were so strong. It's not until the community started working together to address the drug problem, and I used to see this building across the street from the community center with these odd symbols across the top. It was from the Masons, and I didn't know much about that. And they said it was the Blue Note. And I mean, I said, oh, okay. But like it was so intense at the neighborhood at that time, but not until they started talking about a highway expansion, not until they was talking about tearing down the building, that I started to learn more about the history or the space that I was in. And E.W. Pearson was the gentleman who established the Burton Street community, and knowing that brought so much pride to me. And then the more I learned and the more I realized all the struggles that they had to endure to build a self-sustaining community when they had blood policy and all the resources against them, and they were still able to build a strong place, it really made me want to go harder. Next slide. And like I said, I remember when I moved back here, you know, we was picking up trash and we was doing all this and that. And I came in the house trying to brag to my mom, like, yo, look what we doing. We changing the world, you know what I mean? We doing this and that. And, you know, it was just about 5 of us, you know what I mean, organized. And then she went in the back room and then she came back out with this newspaper article and she showed it to me. She said, okay, this is what was happening before you got here, you know, trying to address this drug issue. And what this photo is, this is a photo of the mothers, community members marching on Headwater Road, about 200 deep on Headwater Road, trying to bring attention to the Burton Street and the different drugs and all those things that was happening down here in the community. And right in the back, my Aunt Essie back there in that green shirt, it was like a green shirt. She was also one of the founding members of the Burton Street Community Association. She started the Barton family reunion, and she was a real anchor in this community. And what I realized, I wasn't the first shift, I was third shift. Because there was some people before me that was putting the hustle in, and what I'm doing is just continuing that work. You know what I mean? Trying to make the hustle real with the hopes that I leave an inheritance, time, talent, or treasure, or inspiration for some young people and blah, 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 to continue this work. You know what I mean? Next slide. And through the work in the community, and we was like, yo, all these young boys were still looking for work. I mean, they said, man, we ain't no options. This is what we gotta do. And so we said, okay, what could we do to be real powerful, to plug these young people into something that we know is like the future? We know the environment is the future. So how do we train them up and to get them in position to do that? So at that time, I drove around the city trying to find something. I didn't want to do it myself. I just wanted to connect the young people I was working with to a program or initiative that would build their skill set, was specifically in the environment. I was not trying to create a training program. I was just trying to connect the dots. But unfortunately, I didn't see one. There wasn't one like I envisioned in my mind. So the Green Building Council connected me with this dude, Dan, who approached them with a similar vision, and they connected us. And then from that, we drove to Pittsburgh, 2007, I think, for the first Good Jobs, Green Jobs Conference. And when we got there, we got so motivated and excited, and Dan was sending me all these, videos of all these different African-American environmental leaders that I knew nothing about. And then we launched Green Opportunities out of the backyard of the Peace Guard, in the Peace Gardens in 2008. And it was one of the most powerful experiences that I was able to do that would not only help people, the whole community, but the whole planet. Like this particular jump was to help everybody, you know what I'm saying? And like I said, I didn't want to do it, but I did, and I learned so much about it. Next slide. And from that, so when we started going, we was operating out of the backyard in one room in the community center, the Burton Street Community Center, and then we relocated. We was able to secure a space over there at the Ellington Center on the south side of town. It used to be called the Reed Center. And once we got over there, we was able to go after some HUD funding with the Housing Authority, and we got about $4.3 million to renovate that structure. Now, the Ellington Center was another school for African Americans on the south side, a segregated school. And it's, to me, a very historical place. Like I say, for hood huggers, our goal is try to rebuild the infrastructure that these communities thrive from, you know what I mean? And how do you rebuild them and then protect them? Because we know Asheville is a very popular town. It's one of the second fastest gentrifying cities in the country, behind Charleston, ahead of DC. So it happened. We did it. We was able to move into the building, renovate it, and it was another very powerful experience for us. And he's to the left is some young people who was involved in this mural. At that time, you know, I'm an artist, and at that time when I was talking about art and putting this in the space, people just like weren't really listening to me. So they were just mainly trying to build out the, you know, the internal mechanics of the building. But finally, we was able to get some funding from, I think, Senator Van Dyne at that time, and some other donors. And we was able to hire muralists with the support of the young people to create the mural on the front of the building. Next slide. Yeah, this is going back to urban renewal, but, you know, history repeats itself because, like I said earlier, there's another highway project that's about to come through the community again. It's going to affect Burton Street and the Hillcrest community. Burton Street, they actually going to take homes and businesses for the third time. And this Crossroads document was created with UNCA, Deborah Miles, a number of, man, that was a great experience too. Being a part of that was a very powerful experience to learn the history. And, you know, if you're living in a community that people, you know, label as a place that's not safe or is not a good community, you started to think that it's you. But really, what this taught me, no, there was a policy, blood, and resource. It was a design that put people in some very ugly conditions, and then blame them for not being able to crawl out of it. So the Crossroads just tells a story how Asheville was devastated with this whole process. And this thing to the right, these two maps to the right, is what's going to happen in the future. And what we're trying to do now is, because Hillcrest has been labeled as an environmental justice community, and so did Burton Street. So what we're trying to do now is like, okay, we know y'all coming through here for the third time. How can we get African-American businesses and community members involved in this process, not as a victim, but somebody that's going to benefit through a contract, through future contracts. And like, if you see to the right, so it's one, we just see the highway, and then it's one where you see these little boxes and checkers. Now those little boxes are future, those are future plans where they plan to put businesses in between around the highway right outside of Hillcrest. And then well, we would like to see that opens up, because in Hillcrest it's one way in and one way out. We want to open that up and hope that the people who live in there can get, you know, some storefront space in those future structures that they plan on putting in there. And this is a very challenging, this right here is a very challenging thing that we're trying to work with. And we would love to get more community conscious and we're working together to try to address these developments. Next slide. This right here is the Burton Street plan. This is something we created back in 2000, I don't know, 9. This is when the people was fighting to protect the neighborhood around the drugs, fighting, and they put their life on the line and make the neighborhood better. And then they say, okay, yo, we're gonna come through again and we're gonna tear through the neighborhood again. And because we was already organized and trying to fight and rebuild and restore the community internally, we had momentum to create this neighborhood plan. Now, create this neighborhood plan was no joke. Yes, people was fussing and getting cussed out. Yes, it wasn't no joke. It was real, but it happened. And we did this to let DOT know, like, we know you coming through here. We know you're going to take things, but this is what we want out of the deal. And it happened. Now, thanks to what was Julie Mayfield at the time, Asheville Design Center, a number of people came. People came from far and wide to come and get behind the Burton Street community as we was going through this transition and trying to create a way out of no way to help protect the neighborhood. And since that time, at this time, after we created that around 2010, it was just sat on the shelf. So it was up to the community to keep putting it out there. Like, okay, when is this stuff gonna happen? When are we gonna get these plans that we put on the books long time ago? And finally in 2018, it was adopted by the city, and they went through, DOT went through this whole new process, adopting the plan, and we measured out the betterments of what we would like to see done. And now our number one plan now is to implement. And we know city and others are moving sort of in slow motion, but we've been waiting long enough. So right now we have some momentum, a grassroots momentum designed to make some of the goals in the neighborhood plan, some specific goals around year-round training, garden business, and some other things in the neighborhood a reality. Next slide. And I talked about this earlier. The reason we started this tour business, and we could have went into beer. We could have went into beer, but we said, what business you want to go in? Beer, coffee. I said, well, let me go in a tour business because Asheville seems like it's a pretty popular town for tourists. But a lot of time when they come in, they say, where's the black folks? So we say, okay, let's create this business. Let's make some money. And then let's try to protect and educate people about the rich African-American history up here in Buncombe County. Next slide. And this leads me to the plan based on our experiences before Asheville. And since we've been here, we are designing this community accountability. It's called a workbook. It's called the New Green Book. And it just talks about how to do this, how we was able to do it, what was our opportunities and obstacles we had to face. Next slide. And these are some key components to making it happen. These are the maintenance things. Because, you know, you can have people out here coming together trying to make a real hustle happen, but you got to maintenance that. Because sometimes we bump heads and we don't agree, and we just make these errors. So instead of just breaking up and going our separate ways, we got to figure out how to work it out in spite of the challenges. And because of the work at Burton Street for several years, I haven't gained a lot of practice in doing that, but I'm still practicing to make it better. Next slide. This is another graph that talks about some specific goals that I told you is the community. Hood Talk represents the neighborhood, and then you have the schools and the businesses. Okay, next slide. And that's another. So the core represents, in the middle is the core, it represents the community itself. And then on the outside, it talks about when we go out, when we don't have the capacity internally to deal or to grow a particular initiative, how can we get outside people in to bring their skill set, time, talent, and treasure in to support the grassroots work that we already have on the books that we're making happen. Next slide. And this is the final slide. This is some current things that we're doing in the garden. Like I say, the solar panels is now in the garden. Now we're looking to put lights and sound. We want to make it an outdoor theater space, a school, classroom, whatever. It's like, if for all the struggle and blood and pain that got us to this point, what's the maximum thing we can do if we had a plot of land? What's the maximum thing that we can engage youth and community members with if we had a little piece of land? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to maximize this land to its top potential while also supporting people in the planet. I'm gonna stop there.
All right, thank you, Dewayne, for that presentation and for all that great information and all the awesome stuff that's happening. We have some time for some conversation and for some questions. But Dewayne, can you just tell us, you talked a little bit about how COVID-19 has impacted your plans and the communities that you are working with and serving. Can you just tell us a bit more about that? Kind of how have things gone with the Peace Garden and stuff in the midst of this huge upheaval?
Well, the Peace Garden has been real popular. Man, we've been getting more traffic during this time than we do during regular times, and especially during the day. A lot of parents are bringing their kids through and letting them run around and do things. And I think what also happened is when people was, restricted to their homes, they was walking around the community more and talking to each other more and trying to, finding out who their neighbors are. So I think it's been a real, for a person who's always felt that the communities is the headwater, is the beginning. Like if we don't have the structure right in the neighborhood, anything downstream from that is not going to be as effective. So no, it's been great, man. In fact, that's why I told you my blood pressure was up, man. I mean, it's been going hard. They've been keeping me busy out here between the 3 gardens, the young people, the neighbors, the climate of the country. We created this space for a time like this.
Good. Also glad to hear that you took some time for some self-care in the midst of that as well.
Yeah, we trying. Lord knows we trying. Yeah.
Looks like Robin Geiser asked, how is Hood Huggers International intersecting with the reparation plans that are happening in Asheville and Buncombe County?
I mean, I hear the talk, but I've been out here trying to get it for a long time. So I'm just saying, if we're gonna talk, if we're serious about this, we got a long list of things that should have been done like 10 years ago that would fall right in line with this whole reparation thing. And right now it could be like low-hanging fruit. So I just would like to see, like the Burton Street Community Plan, the Shiloh Plan, the East End Neighborhood Plan that was designed by the community to build out the infrastructure and build out their community to make it stronger than it was during this Jim Crow segregation time. So we are open to connecting and doing things, but we have really been staying focused in the neighborhood with what we already had on our plate. And it's good to hear the talk, but we want to see the blood in the money. There's a lot of policies. And one thing Asheville's good about, they have a lot of policies that's already on the books, like the city's comprehensive plan. Like I say, the Burton Street plan. There's a lot of initiatives where we pay consultants top dollars to create, but it's still collective dust. So there's a traffic jam, and we need to make something real and unclog the traffic jam, for these communities and for our city. If we're going to be one of the first cities to claim it, that means we need to go hard. If we're going to say it, we need to go hard. We need to be showing examples, no matter how small or big. We need to be practicing. If we're going to be the first, if we're going to be getting the press, we got to get the hustle too. We got to get the sweat. We got to get the sweat in.
I mean, that's really, really well said. We showed up on CNN, but what's the follow-up from that? That's really, thank you for sharing your frustration there. Patricia Anderson writes, she says, your presentation was amazing. Thank you so much for informing and inspiring us. Then she asks, in addition to financial donations, are there other ways that I'm guessing she probably means like faith communities like Grace Covenant, can support your many valuable efforts?
Yeah, we looking for time, talent, and treasure. And we running that through the CAP workbook. So if you had a skill, if you got a skill or a talent that you want to share, let's talk. You know what I mean? And we would not have this peace garden if we waited for some money. If we waited to get money to do this, this would not have happened. People gave their sweat and their time to make this happen. Youth, adults, so many people gave, and everything. I just cherish everybody's effort. That whoever try to support this, anything we try to support in the community, I think is a big deal. I get more excited when I see people giving up their time to come and make a hustle happen. That's a big deal, and I value that a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Jan says, thank you, Dewayne, for your work in this community and for letting us know the history of your work, some of the history of Asheville and the present situation, and your vision for the future. Alexandra asks, are the tours still active, or are they paused because of COVID? And similar question to before, what does Hood Huggers International need most right now?
Well, right now the tours are on pause. We've been on pause for about 4 months now, and but we did a couple tours. We're gonna start back up in September, just doing walking tours. I'm really going back and forth about doing it because I'm one of those high risk people too. So it's like, yo, man, but man, I don't know. So I plan on starting back up in September to start just doing walking tours and seeing how I feel about it. And, and all the precautions I would need to take, and of course for the people who's taking the tour. Yeah. So, and like these young boys, man, these young boys coming at me hard right now. And they hungry. And if these young people gonna be sitting around the neighborhood because they not in this classroom and they don't have these extracurricular activities, we gotta create a space for them to keep them busy and keep them, safe. So as far as greatest need, it is to help support that initiative right now. Like I say, we plan on building a solar charging station over here at Burton Street. Luckily, people have been giving donations, and most of that donation went to paying the young people and paying for the materials and any type of person who had a particular skill set who wanted it to help train them up. We had a guy build with them, go over car, they built a shed, they put up fences. So our biggest need right now is supporting that particular initiative. We do have to get a large toolbox because somebody did come through the garden and steal some things. Well, I don't want to really talk about that, but anyway, we do need to get a large toolbox that we could lock up. So yeah, that's a pressing need right now. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Lynn Meacham picked up, and I really picked up for me whenever you talked about Asheville being the second fastest gentrifying city in the country. Lynn asks, how is gentrification changing the Burton Street neighborhood and also just the wider city?
It's changing the neighborhood like the city's being changed. Like, you know, like those once forgotten lands that was these African American communities are the most popular places and most cheapest place to move in right now. I mean, like I just talked about Lee Walker Heights. That's not going to be the last public housing unit that goes down. So, and we can see some of these public housing units are in some real nice areas. So Burton Street is changing like the city is changing, and that makes this CAP model even more important, because what we're trying to do is like, okay, we got these old people who went through all this garbage to live here. We got these new people coming in who didn't have to have that experience, and they happy and they made a touchdown. They're in Asheville. They're in a great neighborhood, I know. And it's like, how do you build a bridge to that? And that's what we were working on. If we're going to build a bridge, we need to build a framework. We're going to build a framework. We got to build a method of practice, a method of maintenance and celebration. So the neighborhood is changing, and we're working, and we're trying to use the neighborhood plan as a way to bring everybody, make everybody one. Because when this highway come through here, it's going to affect us all. You know what I mean? So how do we use this opportunity as a way to build cohesion and relationships in the neighborhood?
Thank you. So Tish has a couple of questions. She says, for people who cannot do physical labor, would letter writing, telephone campaigns to city council members strengthen the push on city leaders to take action?
Amen. Yeah, yo, we need that. We got to do some thank you letters right now to some donors. Yeah, that's a real important. And as long as whoever the person is, we always want them to have a UI, a youth under instruction, a youth who works with them to do that, because we got to grow the next crop. We can't keep adults just standing in the room trying to figure this out. We got to have them in the room. We got to have them, at least if they're in the room on their phone, as long as they're in the room, we got to be growing the next crop of people who's going to deal with this, to deal with our planet and all the different challenges we have. So yeah, if you got that skill set, and you also know that I would want you to work with a young person in the group to help show them on how to do that, and the best way to do that, oh, yo, bring it on, you know.
Tish also asks, how much does a large lockable toolbox cost?
I don't know. We got to check out Lowe's. I'm not sure.
Get y'all in contact with each other.
Huh?
I'll get you in contact with Tish, yeah.
Okay, cool.
John Ledgerton says, great work, Dewayne. How many youth are you working with in the Burton Street community?
Hey, that name sounds familiar. Is that the architect dude?
That is the architect dude, yeah.
Oh yeah, tell him I said
member of our session, yeah.
Yeah. Right now, it's about 10 young boys. Man, they challenging me, man. Y'all just don't know how these young boys making my blood pressure go up a little bit. But yeah, it's about 10. We have them coming on certain days. and we're trying to break them up. And we got a young boy in the neighborhood that's a real strong leader that I'm trying to drop this down to him so he can help lead it. So it's about 10. I think we need to get some young ladies in here, man, to mix this pot up. So I'm gonna have to do some recruiting, get some young ladies. But right now it's all young cats. All young cats.
Andrea asks, does Hood Huggers International have an endowment?
No.
One personal question. Again, I feel really bad that your music video got cut off in the middle of it. That was awesome. Is it available on YouTube? How can people find your work?
Yeah, ask Mr. Hill to go to your church. And he made it. Hill. And you can go on YouTube. Yeah, you can go on YouTube and you can go on YouTube and check it out. Cause he even made me a YouTube page. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Great. I think Jay Hill.
Jay.
Yeah.
Jay Hill.
Yeah.
Great. I saw the Hill family is on this call.
Yeah, he says he'll share the link in just a second.
Oh, okay. Awesome. All right. Well, we're coming into our final minutes or so. Any other just kind of final questions for Dewayne as we're finishing up? And
This is not a question. It's just a comment. I just looked on the Lowe's page, and there's like this lockable tool container for like $400 and something. So for someone who asked that
quick
question.
work. Yeah. Thanks, Lois. All right. This is from Kelly. When is Dewayne going to win a MacArthur Genius Grant? It's a good,
All right.
good question.
All right.
Yeah.
Right.
Robin says, thank you for the information, Dewayne. Fabulous work. Tish says, thanks. Maybe we can work something out. She was the one that asked about the toolbox. And then
cool.
Do y'all see the link at the bottom? There's the link to Dewayne's video at the bottom of the chat. So save that. Make sure y'all check that out today. All right. Well, can we turn everybody off of mute for a second? Let's just give Dewayne just our thanks for your time and for your wisdom. Thank you, Dewayne.
All right.
There you go, Dewayne.
Hey, go, Dewayne.
Woohoo!
Thank you, Dewayne. Amen.
Thank you, Dewayne.
Great. Great job.
Thank you, Dewayne.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Learned a lot.
Thanks, Dewayne.
Excellent. You raw.
Dark out here. Thank
I
you.
want to remind everybody at GCPC too that Dewayne is one of our covenant partners, the Grace Covenant, and we're excited to continue to support Dewayne's work in lots of ways. So this isn't the only time that we're, in contact with Dewayne. He is, a part of our community, and we're very grateful for all the ways that Dewayne is willing to partner with Grace Covenant over the long haul. So, Dewayne, we're just very thankful for the relationship. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being consistent, because y'all have been very consistent in your support.
NC Block, so he can sign up.
Dewayne, thank you for your virtual presence among us today. Thank you for your wisdom and for the great history that you've shown to us, and your ongoing efforts in this community is truly inspiring.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight. Good to see everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, Dewayne.
All right.
Drive home safe, everybody.